Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be ranking the best hand traps in the next set Doom of Dimensions for the upcoming format. Starting off, we have Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom I'm going to put in the solid tier. I think if you're playing a hand trap approach, Ash should be in all of your decks. And quite honestly, even if you're not playing a hand trap approach, Ash should probably be at least in your side deck. The reason I say at least on the side is because going first stops a lot of non-engine. Stops Holy Sue, stops Azuna. Obviously depends if your deck loses to Azuna. And then in the hand trap approach, Ash, it's not like high impactful. Like Ash is not, by itself is not going to stop the turn, but paired, I think Ash is pretty good, and it pairs well with a lot of other cards. Like for example, you can Ash Cupsy, and then like your other cards to get more value. Or Vanquishful, you can stop certain cards. So I think Ash is really good right now. Bell, I'll put in decent / situational. I think Bell is good, but it's not good for the main deck. It's not. It depends on the deck. So I think in general, most of the decks should probably side it because you really want it for the Yummy and Dragaton matchup. It's not amazing versus VSK9. If you're playing Yummy, you can main it, but some people have started to swap that over to Nib. It doesn't feel amazing in the main because versus Vanquishful K9 is very inconsistent. But against Yummy, it's obviously good. Also going first, as a going first option, the card is just really bad. Although keep in mind you can Bell Azuna, so it does have some extra utility versus VSK9, so it's not terrible. I'm kind of iffy on like whether I think this is better or Nib is better in the main for hand trap Yummy right now. But so I think for Yummy you can consider maining it, but for all the other decks you wouldn't main it. You just have better options for hand traps, whether it's Holy Sue or Azuna, or you're playing K9 deck or whatever. But I think it's decent as a side deck option. Bisthials are very lackluster right now. They're not good versus Vanquishful, very terrible versus Vanquishful, and then versus Yummy, they're like okay, but they're probably better options. I think if you're playing Malice, you play Bisthials. If you're playing any other deck, you don't play Bisthials. So yeah, against Vanquishful, I don't think they're correct either. Moving on, we have Contact Seat. This card is really lackluster right now. Not everyone's on cross sheet, but a lot of people are trying out Nib in the deck, so they're playing Donner. You can't Donner under Obedience School, but most of the time they won't draw Obedience School going first at least, so they'll be able to Donner if you Contact Seat them, so you get punished super hard. And Contact Seat's type of card where like if it like they don't have it out, it's crazy, but if they do, it's not very good. So because of that, I don't think Contact Seat is really that great. Next we have Dominus Impulse. I think Dominus Impulse is a top tier hand trap at the moment. Like Ash, it's not going to end the turn by itself, but I think it stops a lot of strong cards in the format. It's very flexible too when it stops. Like you can stop Lupus or Azuna to have a card, or like Holy Sue summon from deck. And so I think that extra utility is super nice. And then going first versus the decks, I think it's still strong too. Like if your deck can play Dominus Impulse, you 100% should be playing it. If you can play a ton of non-engine, I know some Moonlight players aren't playing it because they feel like they can't play it. Their deck doesn't play that much non-engine, which is fair. But I think in most of the decks you want to play it. Like you're playing Malice, DBD, you want to play it. Moving on, DB Crow. This card is honestly, I'm going to put it in unplayable. I know before I had it in the deck list I uploaded, but I've changed my mind on the card. The card's very bad. It's not good versus Yummy. Versus even worse now that Marshmallow came out. Now you don't even have the option to like maybe banish a minion, because they can just get it back. So I mean you can banish Surprise if they're only on one Surprise, like me, it works, but that's even worse. So I think DD Crow is really unplayable at the moment, and then Vanquishful obviously it's meh. Or not meh, it's terrible. I mean it's inconsistent, right? But if they can't afford to, they're not making rock early, so we have Fua. Fua is a high tier, high impact hand trap right now. I think it's enough. Drawing Fua can be enough against like all the decks pretty much. You do have to worry about sometimes about getting hit by Paradise Smasher, but I think Paradise Smasher is pseudo fake. The card's really strong, but honestly, it's not something you have to fear every hand. And you can't perfectly play around Paradise Smasher unless you take a super like bad non-engine approach. So because of that, I think Fua is insane, and it should be in pretty much most decks, to be honest, or every deck. We have Side Frame Delta. I'm going to put Delta in unplayable. The card is not completely terrible. However, I don't think it should be in any deck list right now. It's just because Yummy and Vanquishful K9 don't play enough spells for Delta to consistently be good enough. So I think playing Delta is a misplay. Moving on, we have Dominus Spiral, which I'll probably put the text up on the screen right now. Yeah. So basically Dominus Spiral, if you don't know what it does, it lets you if your opponent activated an effect in the hand or the graveyard, you can bounce an opponent's monster or something like that. And then if you don't have a trap in your graveyard, they can summon a monster back from their graveyard. It's okay. I think it's a cool addition if you're playing a Dominus deck. The issue with Dominus Spiral right now is that number one, Yummy's in the format, so it's really, really bad against Yummy, obviously, like Azuna. And number two, most decks can't really play it, and then it's not going to like stop a play by itself. Like they get to still get value out of their cards. So I think that makes it a bit lackluster. However, I think you 100% play it if your deck can probably play it. But it's not 100%. It depends. But so yeah, I have it as lackluster there. Droll. I'm of the opinion that Droll is. I'm gonna put a decent situational. It's good versus Vanquish Soul, but it's conditionally good versus Vanquish Soul. Because like I'm not a fan of like playing 6 Molcharmies plus Droll. I hated having to do that in like Mitsu Raizo format, and I really don't like doing that, especially right now. And right now, Pirellia isn't seeing play. So I think if you're not playing Pirellia in the main deck, not still playing the main deck, obviously it's sided. But you're siding Pirellia, because I think Pirellia is crazy versus Vanquish Soul K9. Well then, are you going to side Droll and Pirellia? Feels kind of weird. But I think it's still okay to side it, because I think it's still strong against Vanquish Soul K9. In some decks, you kind of want it. Like, for example, if you're playing DBD, I think you want Droll, at least in the side deck, as like a Fua counter when you go first. So yeah. But it's like decent situation. Obviously, with Yummy, it's bad. Moving on, we have Fantasme. Fantasme is, I think, is better than Bell and Droll. Or better than Droll. I wouldn't say better than Bell, but Fantasme is decent. The only deck you really play this in is Vanquish Soul, just because Vanquish Soul wants cards that draw, so they can draw into like their Holy Suit and like their super strong engine pushes. So I have it here. Next we have Gamma. Gamma is another card that I think is high impact. I was considering playing Gamma in my Vanquish Soul side deck. However, the issue with that is that Vanquish Soul, they play so many bricks already, and I didn't want to like play them. Also, I've been trying out some of the draw cards like Fantasme and stuff, and it's another card that's not good to draw Fantasme. But I think it does have potential, and if you're not playing something like Fantasme, then you can consider Gamma. But I've always been a big fan of Gamma, even when while it's at 1. Chaos Hunter, unplayable. Malice, I think Malice is good. I think Malice is really, really good and really underrated, but it's not seeing the representation, so no reason to respect it super hard. I'm gonna skip one. Same thing with Lancia. I don't think Lancia should be in any list right now. Obviously, it's still good versus Malice, so. I'm gonna put Impermanence decent situational. I think it's a solid hand trap. Obviously, a bigger trap means it doesn't play to Azuna, which is pretty cool. It pairs well with some cards like Fua, for example. You Fua versus Yummy, then you Impermanence stand by phase or draw phase. Pretty good. It's still a decent pair versus like Vanquish Soul 2. And I'm mainly talking about Yummy and Vanquish Soul just because like that's the format. So I'll talk about some of the other decks a bit. Imperm versus Yugioh I think is really good, honestly. You can hit the normal summon, or you can hit like the Altharion, and it's not going to SDK the deck half the time, but I mean it still stops some stuff, so I think it's chill. Well, it's not the most consistent card, but that deck is not, hand traps aren't really that consistent against the deck. But I think Imperm is solid. I think if you're taking a hand trap approach, Imperm is nice. The issue with Imperm is that like not every deck can play it, because if you're playing Vanquish Soul, you can't play Imperm. If you're playing for like because you want attributes, right? I mean you can, but it's like for Imperm to have value, you need to play a ton of other hand traps with it, and then Vanquish Soul is just not that kind of deck to play that much non-engine with it. And then if you're playing, obviously it's playable in Yummy. If you're playing Yugioh yourself, you want monster hand traps in that deck. So that's the weakness of Imperm isn't that Imperm in a vacuum is a bad card. It's just that the card isn't seeing, the other decks can't play it. So I just move it here, but it's still good. Moving on to Ghost Mourner. This card's trash. I'm not even going to talk about it. Moving on to Pirellia. Pirellia is a weird one. So I don't think it's playable in the main deck because it's not good against Yummy. So if you are trying to deck build right now, I would not have Pirellia in your main deck unless your local specifically has a high, or locals or the regional you're expecting to go to has a low expected representation of Yummy. But I think it's 100% in the side deck because against Vanquish Soul K9, I think it is the best hand trap. If you're taking like a hand trap approach, I think the card is crazy against Vanquish Soul K9. They have to summon from the hand to do a lot of their plays. Especially in the mirror match, the card goes crazy. When you're playing Vanquish Soul, like the Molcharmies are so good because you want cards that draw you into like your good cards. So Pirellia, I think you could put it here, or because it's so good against Vanquish Soul, you could put it here. For now, I'm gonna put it here because it's a side deck card, but I digress. Ogre, I think Ogre is a cool main deck hand trap option for Yummy because Yummy's trying to play like 20 plus hand traps. Yes, it's not as good as Purge. Yes, it's not as good as Imperm. Yes, it's not as good as like Ash or Fua. But when you're trying to take a hand trap approach, you only have so many like really good hand traps you can play. You have to play some of the more meta ones. Ogre is not amazing, but it's not. But like, sometimes it can be high value. Like, for example, against Vanquish Soul, they go like Mad Love, or paired with like Fua against Yummy, because you can Ogre with statue. But sometimes, that's not every time, right? It can be inconsistent. So that's why it's like decent situational. If it was more consistent, like from the Ogre's highs, it would be like here, but it doesn't have those highs all the time. So that's why it's decent situational. I think Ogre should be played if you're playing Yummy in the hand trap approach, but regardless. Next we have Dominus Purge. I think this card is really good. For Yummy, I think it's one of the best hand traps against Vanquish Soul specifically, just because they have so few counters to it. You know, Impermanence Veiler, they can be dodged with like Heavy Border Caesar, and also all the monster hand traps turn on like Azuna, and like Ripper get the additional set. Whereas Purge doesn't have any of those weaknesses at all. It's also a card you can keep in your hand as well. It can also stop opponents' non-engine. You know, you can stop Thrust, you can stop Book of Eclipse. Again, Dracotel, it's really, really good as well, being a stop Ketsu and whatnot. And it's a card you can keep in your hand against Dracotel too, so you can't pop it with like an Urgula or a Gulamel or whatever. Not likely Gulamel going second, but Urgula. I think Purge is really good. And against Yummy, it's also a card that stops Cubsy at 2, which it's not insane, but I mean, stopping them being to surprise in the mirror match is pretty nice. And I say mirror match because Yummy is the main deck claim this right now. I mean, Blue Eyes too. And so yeah, and like it's better than Impermanence Veiler on the Cubsy in the mirror match because obviously they can dodge it, the Impermanence Veiler with Snatchy, but they can't dodge the Purge. Well, they can dodge the Purge sometimes if they start with like, you can dodge Purge technically on Cubsy if you go like Minion Revive Cubsy, Chainlink 2 Snatch You Effective Synchro, Chainlink 1 Cubsy, Chainlink 2 Cubsy Yummy Wade to add, but nobody's really doing that, so yeah, Purge is crazy. Ghost Reaper, I'm gonna put Ghost Reaper in decent. I know at first it was like Reaper is crazy, then it was like, oh, Reaper is bad because you can play through it. Yes, Yummy has ways to play through Ghost Reaper, however, when you're playing, I think Ghost Reaper paired with like multiple other non-engine can be really strong. So the other day I was testing Ghost Reaper and Yummy in like the mirror match. And the card was performing, honestly. Because like, yes, they can do Star Ham stuff, but you play so many other hand traps that normally I was able to consistently stop that play all the time unless they hard use the field spell. Now there is issue with it of hard drawing the field spell, and there is, I'm gonna move over here, and there is the issue of you have to be playing a high hand trap approach to make use of Ghost Reaper. So I don't think Ghost Reaper is good in Vanquish Soul. I don't think it's good in other decks like that, but I think it's still something worth considering. It's also weird because I don't think it's good against Vanquish Soul. I know some people were playing it against Vanquish Soul with like hit the rocks. Half the time they don't need rocks. That is not good. Not a consistent answer to the deck. I don't think it's good against Dragotel either because they can add back the Fusion, Altharion with the trap cards because they can add back banished Dragotel cards as well. Yes, they don't need to do that every time. Yes, sometimes they need Altharion to give them value, but if you're kind of just gambling. Like, oh, I hope they don't open a ton of names. And you play against someone with 3 Panas or 3 Urgulas, like, I'm opening a ton of names, so I don't think Reaper against those decks is that great. So it's only really good against one deck, and it's super specific in its use, and it's like, is it the best card for that matchup? So I could see someone putting it here, but personally, I'm gonna put it here. Shifter, I think Shifter is okay. It's only really good against Yummy. Well, I mean, it's good against like Dracotel too, but it's not good against Vanquish Soul. But I mean, you play it in Vanquish Soul. I think it's decent. I think it has some like conflictions with the deck a little bit of Vanquish Soul, which makes it kind of awkward, but I think it's chill. Next we have Skullmeister. This card's unplayable. Gizmek, unplayable. Veiler, oops, my bad. Veiler, I'll put it below, like here. I think it's similar to like an Imperm type card. Obviously it's a bit weaker than Imperm in its uses, because it's a monster effect. So, pairs poorly with Fua. Pairs poorly with like, others, mainly just Fua. Also turns on like K9 and whatnot, but I think it's still a strong card. Nonetheless, there's the advantage if you're playing like Dragotel, you can add it back, but I don't think everyone really add, like, that's so fake, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even sure if you're supposed to play this card in Dragotel. The card is just, I don't know, it's weird, but regardless. I think Veiler good is paired, but I think it's good paired in Yummy because Yummy plays a lot of cards like Veiler. You play Purge, which is like Veiler. You play Imperm, which is like Veiler. And these cards solo aren't that good, but when combined together, they're really good. Whereas in Dragotel, it's like, you don't play a lot of those cards. So I don't even really like Veiler in Dragotel. But I think for Yummy is still a good option, or like other decks that are playing a ton of hand traps like that. Nibiru, I think Nibiru is pretty good right now. I like it. It's not the best main deck card because against Vanquish Soul K9 it's not great, but against Yummy it's really solid. Yes, I can play through it with one card combo, but I mean, They have a little bit less resources. Also, if paired, it can be pretty good. So I think Nib's a solid choice. Meows. So at first I was like, Meows against Yummy, when they go minion revive, you can Meows, you get a Droll, it's Upstart Goblin, and then you know, they want to make Arclight, they have to give you a second Droll, right? And then I was like, well, good players aren't going to place minion often, so you won't have that happen. But now that DOOD's coming out, I actually think it's a little bit better, because people are going to be more able to place the minion more often, because they're not afraid of it getting banished due to the fact that they can get minion back. So I think it's top of lackluster, because I think there are better cards for Yummy. But if you're looking for a card that you can also play against Malice, I think Meowth is pretty decent. I already talked about Bisthials. I don't know why Bisthials are here twice. Cycle Reader, unplayable. Token Collector, unplayable. Retaliating C. Retaliating C is not bad against like Dracotel. I mean, Lunalight see more play, and it's like, okay. But I mean, they can out it with Engine sometimes, like Tiger King. Also, the issue is that like Dracotel is seeing less and less play as the format progresses. So it's like, are we really going to play Retaliating C? Like, for a matchup that like is seeing less play? I don't know. So technically, I would say the card's unplayable. Even though in the vacuum it's not terrible right now, I just don't think it should be in your deck list. Azuna, I mean, Azuna's decent situational. I think it's pretty good against Yummy. Or sorry, it's not good against Yummy, which is why it's not higher, but the card is still solid. And then we have Songs of the Dominator as the last one. So Songs is kind of weird. I know we've moved away from like a Songs approach, which is understandable. And it's kind of like, the reason for that is, it's not that Songs is a bad card in the vacuum, because against Vanquish it's not bad, but I think the fact that you can't play some other cards like Ash and Fua with it makes it a bit awkward, at least like in the main together. But I think it's still like here. I could arguably put it here and I wouldn't hate it. But I think taking into the context behind the Songs of the Dominator, I'll put it in lackluster, but like in a vacuum, I would put it in decent situational. Anywho, that's it for my tier list for post DOOD, the hand traps, and the format. So the format's mainly going to be Yummy, Vanquish K9, then below that, like K9 Krishron, and you have decks like Dracotel, Malice, Mitsu Ryziel, Lunalight, Sky Striker, etc. I know I didn't talk too much of the rogue decks. I mainly talked about Vanquish and Yummy, but I think those are the main decks. Also, when we're picking non-engine, I'm not going to pick non-engine for the super rogue decks. Also, a lot of these non-engines kind of like have the additional value of being good against the rogue decks anyway. But yeah, anywho, that said, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content, and let me know what you want to see in the comments below. Anywho, I hope you have a great day, and take care.